Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Reports of atrocities near the capital of Ukraine have prompted France, Germany, Italy, Denmark and Sweden to expel their Russian diplomats. Satellite images taken weeks ago of the town of Bucha in Ukraine showed bodies of civilians on a street countering the Russian government's claims that Ukrainian forces staged the event. Here, bodies are loaded into a van near the village of Motsin. World leaders are reacting in horror to reports of civilian killings, with US and European allies warning of intensified sanctions on Russia.
Russia, because every euro, every cent.
The mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, has asked European politicians to cut off all commercial ties with Moscow, saying payments to Russia are covered in blood. Meanwhile, speaking to the UN Security Council, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of genocide. 5 people have been killed and more than 10 injured when a pickup truck crashed into a train in southern Hungary early on Tuesday. The accident happened at a crossing near the Hungarian-Serbian border shortly before 5 a.m. local time. A police spokesperson said 5 people in the truck were killed, and there were injuries both among those in the truck and on the train. The truck, which was carrying local workers, drove onto the tracks, ignoring red lights. More than 40 MPs have left Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's coalition government. MPs from parties aligned with Mr Rajapaksa's SLLP party-led coalition said they would now independently represent themselves. It comes as the South Asian nation is grappling with power cuts and shortages due to an economic and foreign exchange crisis. This has led to mass protests demanding Mr Rajapaksa's resignation. Peruvian President Pedro Castillo has imposed a curfew in the capital Lima, banning people from leaving their homes in an attempt to curb protests against rising fuel and fertilizer costs.
El Consejo de Ministros ha aprobado declarar.
In a nationwide address, Castillo said the cabinet has agreed to declare a ban on the mobility of citizens to protect the fundamental rights of all people. On Monday, a wave of protests against rising fuel and fertilizer prices triggered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine continued into their second week, while the government scrambled to bring prices down. The government said the protests have become increasingly violent and at least 4 people have been killed. South Africa has announced the ending of COVID restrictions 2 years after they were imposed. Masks will still be required indoors for another month. Mr Ramaphosa said that although the pandemic was not over, he was confident that there were only better times ahead. South Africa has recorded far more coronavirus cases than any other African country, accounting for almost a third of infections across the continent. It has officially registered over 100,000 deaths. Police in South Africa's capital, Pretoria, are looking for a shopping trolley rider who was filmed holding onto a fuel tanker that was speeding on a major highway. The incident happened on Sunday following heavy rains. The man was seen smiling and waving at other motorists. Footage of the incident has been shared widely among social media users in the country. And 2 Charles Darwin manuscripts that were reported as stolen from Cambridge University Library have been anonymously returned. The items were found to be missing in 2001, but at the time staff believed they may have been misshelved. The notebooks, one of which contains Darwin's seminal 1837 Tree of Life sketch, were eventually reported as stolen in 2020 to the Cambridgeshire Constabulary. Now, almost a year and a half later, they have been anonymously returned. Inside a pink gift bag, they were left in a public area of the library that wasn't covered by closed-circuit television, with a typed note on an envelope wishing a happy Easter to the librarian.
I honestly think, the theory of natural selection and evolution is probably the single most important theory in the life and earth environmental sciences. And these are the notebooks in which that theory was put together.
There have been tears. There have been tears, and I think there still will be, because we're not over the emotional roller coaster. It means so much to us to have these home. Like many other buildings, we don't have CCTV in places where people are just regularly just passing through. Our CCTV monitors the front of the building, it monitors the back of the building. So we have passed the CCTV that we have available to the police, and that's a matter for their live investigation.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.